Just when you thought it was safe to put the 2023 season behind us all, a season full of nothing but bitter disappointment and broken expectations, a huge bombshell from The Athletic has now come out. We also saw a story that came out Wednesday afternoon from The Athletic. The story by Dianna, Russini, and Zach Rosenblatt that goes into great detail about the alleged dysfunction that's within the New York Jets throughout the course of the 2023 season. And it's not a pretty picture. It paints a very bleak situation, and it does no favors for guys like Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett and Zach Wilson. It paints a very bleak picture about just about everyone for that matter, and it certainly does not look good. So for a team that's trying to put last season behind themselves, move on to 2024, this certainly does not help. Now, while some of the story isn't all that surprising, there are details that come out that we've heard nuggets about throughout the course of the season. We've discussed as well. There are also nuggets that come out of the story that are truly shocking and truly noteworthy, and we'll get into more of those in just a moment. But before I go into all of that, keep in mind that no team is immune to controversy. We all know that. We see it all the time in the NFL. Teams like the Carolina Panthers and all the controversy that's surrounding David Tepper and his temper, for that matter, and all the issues that have gone on down there in Carolina. Look at the New York Giants. Obviously, a bad season this year for the Giants, and the issues that happened with Wink Martindale and Brian Dable, the issues they had with one another, ended up turning into a screaming match at the end of the season between the two of them as the Giants were dismissing a number of assistants on the defensive staff. Martindale didn't like it. He and Dable got into it, apparently, and then Martindale ended up resigning. So we had that story. And then, of course, the New England Patriots, with the bitterness that developed over the last 5-6 years between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, all centered around whether Tom Brady could still play or not. And, of course, we all know what happened. Brady eventually went to Tampa Bay and won them a Super Bowl, and the Patriots turned into a very mediocre, if not below mediocre, franchise under Belichick at the end of his tenure there. And he now cannot find a job, as he's probably at the end of his career in all reality. So that all sets the table for this story here in The Athletic, which is really a follow-up to the story that came out in December about Zach Wilson's reluctance to return to the starting lineup after getting benched. That's really the crux of all of this. And when we get out of the story, we see a head coach in Robert Saleh that is surprisingly very insecure about his job status, and an offensive coordinator who is distant, if not disorganized, and kind of a power shift in the structure of the team, of course, with Aaron Rodgers. Now, as I mentioned before, some of these nuggets we have heard before during the course of the year, so some of it's not really surprising, but some of these stories that we hear reading this article, some of the quotes that come out of this article are indeed surprising, especially the insecurity of the head coach. Now, the one thing I really want to start with is this. It mentions that Saleh avoided criticizing Zach Wilson or even acknowledging his struggles. Privately, the coach pinned many of the team's offensive issues on Wilson. The line, the receivers, and told people getting 8 wins with Wilson at quarterback would be a miracle. If that's true, then what the heck was going on with this quarterback situation throughout the course of the year? Now, the article does mention that the Jets were considering other quarterbacks like Chad Henne and Carson Wentz, although I do remember earlier in the year that there was this discussion that maybe Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan had reached out to the Jets, and then they denied it. It was a whole bunch of back and forth. But really, the Jets didn't do anything to address their quarterback one of the main reasons why this season fell apart after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And keep in mind, there's also in this article the mention of Joe Flacco. Apparently, decision makers were not in favor of making that move to bring him back in the fold. And we all know what happened. Joe Flacco signed with the Cleveland Browns, and, well, now he's the comeback player, or candidate for comeback player of the year. As the old saying goes, now you know the rest of the story. So this, of course, you have to pin a lot of the blame, and we've had this discussion before. You know about this for a while. on Joe Douglas. The inability of Joe Douglas to go out there and improve this team by getting a serious veteran backup quarterback in here as soon as Aaron Rodgers went down. The Jets had no real plan. They, as it's mentioned here in the article, it was all about survival at that point. So that doesn't surprise anybody. Well, we could certainly see that the Jets had no idea really what they wanted to do with the quarterback position, and as a result, everything just collapsed from henceforth. The one thing that gets really interesting here, and I mentioned about the insecurity of the head coach. The one thing that really everyone's been talking about is this statement here. Once Saleh found out about the Wilson story leak, that he was reluctant to play again, he apparently goes off the handle, has a coach meeting with his staff, and decides, according to multiple people in attendance, telling them if you quote-unquote come forward now, you won't get in trouble. He told them while threatening to take their cell phones. Staffers were bemused by Saleh's obsession with the Wilson story and his reaction to it. Wow. Behind closed doors, the vibes weren't always positive, especially when Saleh would see negative press reports. He would often bring up how, in his mind, the Giants wouldn't get as much negative coverage as the Jets would. Now, here's what I would say to that. The Giants weren't very good at all this year. To be honest with you, the Jets had higher expectations coming into this year because of the presence of Aaron Rodgers, because of all the media attention they were getting nationally. So, yeah, there's going to be more scrutiny on the Jets than there were on the Giants, who, even in spite of being a playoff team the year before, weren't exactly a team that a lot of people were giving a lot of attention to going into the season. And I think some people kind of felt that they were going to take a slight step back this year anyway. That being said, I can't sit here and say with 1,000% certainty that the Giants didn't get any scrutiny. They got enough scrutiny as it is, and as I mentioned before, certainly getting a lot of scrutiny now over the way things are going around with their coaching staff situation. In the aftermath of Rodgers' injury, Saleh started to bemoan his bad luck throughout his tenure. He has often wondered if he was doomed to the same fate as Vic Fangio, who was once the coach of the Denver Broncos, 2019 to 2021, had a mediocre record. That's very similar to Saleh, 19-30 to 18-33, very similar. As the Jets lost games and struggled to score points, security seemed to be Saleh's primary concern. He wished Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers would publicly endorse him for 2024. I mean, that's some damning stuff right there about the head coach. About a coach who, as I mentioned, always came off as someone who was very sure of himself, had a lot of self-confidence, and, as I said, came across as a guy who can motivate and drive players to do their best. That's not what this article is painting a picture of. It's painting a picture of a very insecure head coach. Now, I know there's a lot of people talking about what the Jets should do as a result of this. I'll get to that in just a moment, but there's more here I just want to talk about very quickly. Obviously, the stuff on Nathaniel Hackett. Now, it mentions in here saying that Aaron Rodgers, in a way, was kind of like an assistant GM. I think it's kind of a stretch. I mean, I understand what they're saying here. Look, a lot of us were kind of using that as back and forth as kind of as a joke in a lot of ways, because when the Jets were recruiting Aaron Rodgers, they tried to bring in as many people as they possibly could to make him feel comfortable, as we all know. Whether it be Alan Lazard, whether it be Randall Cobb, whether it be, obviously, Nathaniel Hackett, they were doing everything they could to make him comfortable here in New York, to give him kind of a Green Bay feel here in this area. And that's nothing new, and not too much different than what, say, Tom Brady did in Tampa Bay when he had a number of his former Patriot teammates, like Rob Gronkowski, joining him down in Tampa Bay. So we all knew going into this that Rodgers was going to have some kind of say, and even maybe more say than he probably should, than he should, coming here to New York. The Jets really wanted to get him. Everyone was aboard on that. Now, the stuff with Hackett, of course, is the stuff that just makes your skin crawl. The fact that Hackett struggled to adjust to the offense's new reality. Of course, the offense did not run well at all without Aaron Rodgers. He and Rodgers always say, well, this offense tailor-made for quarterbacks. It's only tailor-made for Aaron Rodgers, which we saw Zach Wilson and, of course, whoever else, Tim Boyle, didn't matter who it was, struggle. Of course, the offensive line played a big role in that. Big part of the reason why this Jets team struggled was because their offensive line was horrendous throughout the course of that season. But Hackett was lacking attention to detail for most of the season. Hackett would meet with offensive line coaches and game coordinator Keith Carter on passing game coordinator Todd Downing during the week, but wouldn't get together with the rest of the offensive staff until the last minute of game prep. Then it goes into the game against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 2, Carter had asked Hackett to give left tackle Dwayne Brown more help blocking Cowboys pass rusher Micah Parsons. Hackett never adjusted, and of course Parsons had a big day, a couple of sacks, knocked around Zach Wilson that day, and the Jets lost 30-10. Nathaniel Hackett has been a problem for this team. And there was rumors even in this article that the Jets are, trying to make it more of a collaborative effort on the offensive side of the ball. Already they've made changes, and we've seen it already, changes to the coaching staff as far as bringing in Tony Deuce, former running backs coach for the Tennessee Titans. They bring him in. They bring in Sean Jefferson, a former Panthers wide receiver coach who was once here in the Adam Gase era. Bringing him in here. They're trying to change some things up here with the coaching staff already because there's a sense that there's not a lot of trust and faith in Nathaniel Hackett, and we can all certainly understand why. There's even talk about the fact that allegedly, that Rodgers and Wilson eventually did not see eye to eye, did not get along too well, and that Rodgers was kind of aloof, and he and Wilson didn't really communicate. That's according to the story. Okay, I can't speak to it one way or the other. That's the allegation in this story. So, what does this all mean now moving forward? What does this all mean? And I see people putting out there online, social media, saying that the Jets need to now hit the eject button, clean house as soon as possible. Here's the problem: we're past the coaching. The coaching carousel is now filled. All right, it's done. Dan Quinn was the last guy to go. He goes to Washington this afternoon. Yes, I understand some of the big names that are out there, but at this point, it really doesn't make a lot of sense for the Jets to now hit reset right now and change the coach, because there's still a lot of problems there. Who are these leakers? There are 30 so-called leakers in and outside the organization. You would have to assume could be players, could be other people within the front office staff, could be people on the coaching staff. We don't know for sure. And you can throw in different names because, like Rex Hogan gets released by the Jets and fans jump on that thinking, oh, maybe he's the leaker. Well, it was reported later on he wasn't. That's not the case. It was a mutual part in the ways that was discussed for weeks prior. So, a lot of theories out there. The fact is, it's too late now at this point. The Jets are already into the preparation for the next season. We're already into the draft process. They have coaches and front office people down at the Senior Bowl right now. And we'll all hear about Joe Douglas talking very highly about the offensive tackle from Oregon State, who could be a pickup for the Jets, the number 10 pick. We have moved on. The Jets have moved on to the next season. The Jets have endorsed Saleh and Douglas moving forward. This is it for them. If they do not succeed this year, it's over, and then at that point, you make that break if they don't succeed. If it's a repeat of this past season, then you make the break and hit the reset button. So, yes, I understand Mike Vrabel's out there. That's the big name that's out there. And I know there's some fans who, I don't know why they're doing this, with the pipe dream of Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was here as a Jets coach many years ago, many years ago, 1994. That's not happening again. Bill Belichick, in case for those who don't know, who forgot or just want to conveniently forget, 24 years ago, wrote on a piece of paper, I resign as the HC, the NYJ. You remember that? Yeah. He is never going to come back here and coach the Jets. Not in a million years. So forget that. Vrabel would be the big name that's out there to consider of names that are available. But why would he come into a situation, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you let Robert Saleh go now because of this article and the insecurities that are revealed in it, allegedly. Why would he come here with a team that's, trying to hit the reset button now with the GM on the hot seat, with the quarterback, going on 41-year-old quarterback, essentially in the hot seat himself as well? Why would he do that? It doesn't make sense. It's not going to happen. So the Jets have to just move forward with what they are, with who they are and what they are, and hope for the best. The best thing that Jets can do to make stories, if I can grab this paper, make stories like this go away, is just start winning games. Win games. Win as many games as you possibly can. Get back into the playoffs. Change the narrative that way. Give us a whole season of Aaron Rodgers where he is actually healthy and plays well. Maybe not to the level that we are used to seeing a guy who was a 4-time MVP quarterback, but very damn close. Let's see this offensive line get fixed once and for all. And let's see what this coach can do, who has said at times that they're close. Last press conference he said after that Patriot game saying, we're close, we're closer than people think. We've gone this far now into the offseason, folks. We're into February. The Jets have to roll with it. You have to roll with it. We all have to roll with it, better or for worse. And we'll see where it leads us towards going for the future towards next season. So this story, not good. It makes a lot of people look bad. Interesting stuff. Again, as I said, is it all 1,000% accurate? I have no idea. I can't speak to that. But it's a scathing report. But the only way the Jets can make it go away is if they just find a way to win games in 2024. Like and subscribe. Let's talk to you next time right here on Sports Talk Nation.